Our next talk, discussion about a human-machine relationship in science, art, and technology. Please welcome researcher Sugwen.
Hello, everyone. Oh, quick note, speakers? Hi. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you all for coming. So I'd like to speak with you today about industry I'm calling relational robotics. So how our eyes perceive, based on light, follows a common aperture to machines. One set of eyes is muscle and nerve, evolved over millions of years, unique in the universe, perhaps, but better understood with each passing day. One set of eyes is metal and plastic, engineered for the tasks at hand, uniformly constructed, yet growing in complexity at a rate we may not be prepared for. One is biological and one is mechanical. They collide. This collision might seem extraordinary, but really it's worth interrogating a little bit more of what it might mean. It's also the basic condition of our lives today. The truth is we're seeing double. The double view of machine vision, the view through security cameras, satellites, and social media. We've constructed a world where all sight is dual, and seeing is a bridge between the contradictions of human and machine, art and engineering, and of the self and of the collective. The poet Adrienne Rich said, "We're living in a time of unprecedented complexity. Our senses are currently whip-driven by a feverish new pitch of technological change. But the activities that mark us as human, though, don't begin, end in, or exist in such a calculus." She said that 20 years ago, and it's become only more true over time. The rate of technological advancement is growing, and the machine's role in society is evolving. The questions raised by AI, robotics, and technology can point to a bleak future. They make us ask questions about whether machines will replace humans and whether machines will replace workers. It's hard to look at a headline without letting one's anxiety stir. Will we be replaced? Will we replace ourselves? Or will the machines somehow save us through technological advancement? Will the machines liberate us from want, fulfill our desires, keep us safe and healthy in a way nature never could? Will they offer us a way to transcend our own evolution? This duality, the promise of its power and the anxiety of its consequences, shapes my worldview. It shapes us all, really. With every time we're thrilled to see a friend pop up on our screens, and any time we get frustrated talking to a robot on the phone. My work, at its simplest level, is about exploring the contradictions that stem from that duality, exploring how those contradictions point at a third path, and what I like to think of as a new hybridity. It's a space that I feel at home at, and I think it might be because I'm a product of two cultures, like many of us may be here, of two languages, and as a child of a musician and a programmer, of science and art in a way. I think that's why I've spent the past decade combining the oldest forms of art with technology so advanced we actually need to invent them as we go along. And now you, everyone, is a participant in these contradictions as well. Often we live this duality unconsciously, and in our sleepwalking, I think we risk forfeiting a kind of agency. And I explore these themes in my work and feel grounded within these contradictory poles by actively building bridges. You could say that we're already living hybrid lives, and we should make better decisions about that hybridity. So I look to art to serve as a bridge between these contradictions, not to resolve them into some new cohesive whole, but to entangle them and to illustrate how they're already entangled. It's about engaging in an active process of reconciliation. Past cynicism and techno-optimism, the art goes to a place where the relationship between the natural and the mechanical is the medium of the art itself. Paintbrush and pixel, art and engineering, human creativity and artificial intelligence. You could say it's fear and hope held in the mind at the same time. Machines treated with compassion, imbued with agency, but understood as a product of human bias and not as a peer in thought. So to bridge these contradictions, we need more syncretic disciplines and comfort with the practices that unify these multiple traditions. We need artists creating with AI, robotics, and all sorts of emerging technology. Art as cognitive science, exploring alternative forms of consciousness. Art as engineering, constructing robotic systems for empathy and connection. And art as philosophy, imagining new and moral constructions for this human-machine relationship. At the intersection of these four fields, my team and I create. We create simulations, performances, and artifacts across scales. We work in the large scale, like this relational robotic performance, integrating satellite and biofeedback. And in the small scale, like this prototype for a robotic unit inspired by the microscopic threads that link fungi to a biological network. We looked at that intersection, that gray area between human and machine, and we stumbled upon it in the first series called Drawing Operations. So this practice began with Doug 1. Doug 1 was about seeing, which is the first step towards knowledge. To know the world, we must first observe the world. It worked through computer vision and a robotic arm. We started by taking one of the most visible frequencies in the color spectrum, red, and deploying it for our first collaboration. We thought that if we could utilize the machine system's reductive functionality, its ability to be selectively colorblind, we could communicate drawn gesture to a robotic unit in real time. So that's what we did. We set up a simple overhead camera, wrote a computer vision algorithm that relayed that positional data back to the robotic arm. By converting the movement of the drawn line into digital signals, we were able to suspend those lines, like recording the choreography of an improvised dance as it was unfolding. From Doug 1, I learned how machines see. I realized that a machine eye isn't a replacement for a human eye, and isn't even interesting when it's just doing the same thing, but better. The real insight comes from unlocking the new ways of seeing enabled by hybridizing the two kinds of vision. The robot would vary from my line drawings because of the limitations of its form, the material restrictions of the technology on full display. It wasn't an error state, but a catalyst for the visual process of the performance unfolding. By creating a gestural balance between human and machine, I thought of what my colleague Sepp Kamvar calls self-reinforcing technologies versus self-limiting technologies. In his scheme, self-reinforcing technologies kickstart an established human process, like, say, drawing, while self-limited technologies replace a human process, like a robot on an assembly line. I aim to break this dichotomy, to build a technology that doesn't encourage more of the same or reduce through replacement, something that doesn't atrophy physical processes in service of computational ones, a technology that creates something new as it's being used. I started this computerized mechanical drawing system to draw differently as a human artist. Instead, I found this simple system could help catalyze new approaches, new connections, and new modes of understanding that weren't dependent on or controlled by said technology. So after exploring the duality of sight, of computer vision versus the human eye, we were inspired to explore memory in the next generation of drawing operations. We moved from sight to the record and recollection of sight. We were really inspired by memory. We looked to the possibility of approaching machines beyond pushing the physical parameters to its limits. So to do that, we needed to draw from a larger data set and construct a framework for machine interpretation. Like human memory, we looked to 2 decades of my drawing data as a kind of data set. It was like embedding a record of my own memories into the artwork. We trained a recurrent neural network on these 2 decades of drawings. It produced an AI system rooted in the analog and given new life in the digital. The way the recurrent neural network works during the performance is I draw a line, and it responds with the line it thinks would come after. But after that initial stroke is based on the creation of the canvas, it's attempting to be predictive. And I sort of allow it to be predictive, to predict that second line, and then make a third line, and so it continues. Memory and acting on memory created a collaborative partner in Doug 2. This revealed the possibility using the machines as collaborators, not tools. Now I'm no longer wielding the robot, but I'm wielding it to a common or possibly unexpected outcome. I lead and it follows. And then it leads and I follow. So that tree of decisions is very co-creative, since I can't decide that second behavior. I don't approve or disprove that second line. I just let it happen and then I do the next one. It does something I don't expect, but in a way that's still recognizably my style. And I can go with it because in doing so, it makes it a co-evolutionary, interdisciplinary process. At this point, we could begin thinking of machines not only just as tools, but as non-human collaborators. It's taught me how collaboration, not automation or replication, is the key to creating the space for both as we move forward. This process became a discovery of mechanical systems as an abstraction of human intent in a way to catalyze new forms of thinking and knowing. As an artist, I'm interested in involving my drawing practice to experience new ontological and epistemological processes. When I perform, I move my brush and it responds to the machine and see the machine respond to me. When I try to guess why it made the stroke it made or anticipate the next move, I get to experience time as a flat and simultaneous space. A space is bounded by the limited domain of art. Thinking like a machine, collaborating with it as an equal, appends the usual AI-human relationship. Normally, algorithms attempt to serve us by predicting our desires. Instead, I'm trying to act along with the predictions rather than being served by them. I'm not the target of the AI system, and the art is the target, and we're working together to manifest this third thing. It's co-equal and, dare I say, empathetic. It points the way towards a new kind of interaction and offers a new form of knowledge, production in action. I like to think of it as art practice as research, interdependence and not codependence. Space is also different, as the model of the machine is always set by the task at hand. I can't walk through a wall, but I can imagine what's on the other side. I know that my field of vision as a human being is more of what this giant rock we call Earth. And that connection between thought and reality has no place in an AI system. It can really only focus on the specific boundaries of that task. All that to say, we can never really think like a machine, in the same way a machine doesn't think and perfectly replicate human intelligence. But simply trying to get into that headspace of co-creation, we can build a bridge, and in relation, empower the hybrid relationship between the synthetic and the organic. With my third drawing operations piece, I thought of the gaze of the machine and began to see vision as multidimensional, as views from somewhere. We collected video from publicly available camera feeds on the internet of people walking on the sidewalks, the cameras in taxis on the road, and all kinds of movement. We used a vision algorithm based on a technique called optical flow to analyze the collective density, direction, velocity, and dwell states of urban movement. This algorithm extracted those states from the public camera feeds as data. Instead of collaborating in a collaboration of one-to-one, we created a collaboration of many-to-many. By combining the vision of human and machine with the city, we reimagined what a landscape painting could be. Using flow data from masses of people moving through the complex city opened up a new frontier for exploration. It really highlighted the way art and discovery could merge from entangling two systems rather than just an individual and a single collaborator. See, biological systems can collaborate with machines or even drive mechanical systems of equal complexity. For me, this approach opened the door to examine the constituent and the planetary. This idea that the complex and interdependent systems that shape an individual could be illuminated by a similarly linked machine network. Phenomena on global scales brought into comprehension, or at least individual perception. Accessing these collective ways of seeing and challenging the binary of individual and group and human and machine demonstrated the ways we could discover something new. I was inspired by Stanford researcher Fei-Fei Li, who said, "If we want to teach machines how to think, we need to first teach them how to see." It made me think of the past decade of my life in New York and the multiple surveillance cameras that I've been watched by, and how these cameras could be used as the eyes through which I could teach my robots. Teaching these robots how to see also made it clear the ways that humans could not. We didn't just want to better replicate what we already do well. We want to create an opportunity to entangle our binocular vision with the networked vision of the computer. If robots can see in ways that are not replicative of human sight, they can remember in ways that aren't like human memory, and know in ways that aren't human knowledge. By leveraging these alternative approaches to building knowledge and hybridizing these relationships with machine intelligence, we can really unlock radical new ways of creating our world. So for me, drawing operations really signaled this shift of thinking of machines beyond simply tools of automation. These new ways of relating to machines, that way of leveraging their non-human capabilities so that they're not just replicating human traits, came to fruition in my latest performance piece, Exquisite Corpus. In it, we explored the possibility of collaboration as biofeedback and as a kind of planetary sensing, as hybrid bodies. Exquisite Corpus, a play on the surrealist drawing game Exquisite Corpse, corpus actually means Latin for bodies. It's a performance that's made of a confluence of sensors, each looking at something beyond human perception. This piece combines biological inputs, the global views afforded by machines, and networked behavior. It moved from an individual collaborating with a robot to the interconnection of complex systems. It has a heart rate monitor controlling the room with an environment made up of interpreted satellite data. It debuted in Mexico City actually just before the pandemic hit, but this is its latest iteration, performed just a few months ago in Athens. So what resulted was an interplay of sensing and reaction. My heart rate connected to the visual illumination of the space, multiple robotic units interacting with my movement, and a sonic environment made up of sonified EEG data and EMF data. By creating this interdependent, complex hybrid in Exquisite Corpus, we plotted the way forward towards a new kind of relationship with a machine. This isn't the relationship of command and comply. It's a relationship of feedback loops and flow and stewardship, sight to memory to knowledge to networks to feedback linked in interdependent systems. You see, the human body, the machine body, and the planet is made up of flows, and these flows can be traced through electricity. Invisible to us, but through drawing gestures and biosensors, they can take form. This is my brainwave visualized as a computer-generated pattern. This is those same brainwaves as a painted stroke. This is those same brainwaves as a robotic gesture. By creating this relational hybrid feedback loop of the three, we share experience of the performance with a new immediacy. These flows are also interdependent with each other. Our brains process the environment and react through machines, act in a world in a way that alters the environment. They link us to the machines and to processes beyond us and to each other. They embed us in systems that automatically spin out emergent phenomenon and create new complexities. Our newest piece, Flora Rearing Agricultural Network, as I call FRAN, activates these lessons of exquisite corpus. FRAN explicitly works through systems stewardship rather than direct action, networked robotics acting on non-human ways of sensing. With these new sensors trained on biological systems, creating the system where creativity and art is an emergent property of a well-tended hybrid relationship. So we shifted our focus from drawing operations to ecological ones. We're designing a series of units stewarding nature. A backdrop of digital flora is linked to my brainwave data, each state in alpha state in flux, seeding new formations of sepals, petals, and leaves. This networked system of custom robotic units will be designed with the purpose of tending to nature inspired by nature. With FRAN, we want to harvest creativity from a garden of AI. In the future, we can link FRAN to a more explicitly biological and ecological system, allowing it to fulfill its promise as a machine garden through which we can cultivate art through stewardship and interdependent systems. I'm actually still designing the initial prototypes for the work, and I'm really excited to be the steward of an artistic ecosystem. I will care for the code and the machines, prune their output, and I won't conduct them as explicit tools. They will react to my biometrics or a data set of my work, or any other data set that I find interesting to sort of illuminate at the time. I'm also trying to extend the natural story even further beyond the visual output of the sculpture. I'm testing out new energy sources so I can create a combination of microbial cell batteries and solar-powered inputs to make the machines fully regenerative. We want living things to power semi-autonomous robots that are painting images of living things. Successfully tending complex biological machine system and interdependence allows us to cultivate creativity, insight, and new ways of accessing non-human perception. We won't make art or discoveries, but we'll maintain the relational systems that grow them. This is the future of human and machine relationships that offers us the most transformative, affirmative possibilities. And I'm really interested in this as a steering mechanism of the practice because I think it speculates on a continuum of co-creation. It foregrounds a process of stewardship at all levels of ideation, design, and creation. By cultivating emergent creativity from these interdependent systems, we can explore planetary views through computational and robotic forms. We can even begin thinking about artwork created on a planetary scale canvas of entangled intersubjectivities of human and non-human processes. In the realm of systems, the model of artificial intelligence, as popularly understood, breaks down. This isn't about creating a digital peer that operates like an individual human. It's about unlocking the new, unique kinds of intelligences possible within the very real limits of code and the very vast expanse of non-human sensory experiences. This new model of collaborating through relationship with systems rather than operating through a tool also forces us past a term like artificial intelligence. It's a phrase that causes more problems than it clears up, because there's no such thing as artificial intelligence, because there's no such thing as natural intelligence. The notion of intelligence is something that has been worked out by statistics in a data set, and some classifiers is kind of its own fiction. It's not to say that there isn't a lot of potential in building responsive systems and using data sets in this way. The resulting intelligence is relational intelligence. It's not on or off. It doesn't function as a direct, clear response to input. It's a new kind of way to know the world that is possible when limits and functions of human perception are entangled with the limits and functions of machine perception. It's an intelligence less about making choices and more about flowing with a tree of possible action. I've been playing with this idea of relational intelligence and relational robotics because responsive feels like something that's on or off. Relation seems a bit more ambiguous. Now, human and machine processes are seldom combined in this way. In fact, the majority of applications of robotic units that are of tools, technology is a tool. But these projects illustrate our and their entangled co-creative potential on the space of a canvas. The goal is to fully intertwine nature and machine in a loop. This is a future, and in many ways, it's our present. It's a new relationship between human, machines, and the ecologies that we live in. It's people exerting agency in the world and realizing our creativity, not by imposing our will through a tool, but by cultivating the emergence of what we will by maintaining an interdependent ecology of mechanical and biological systems. Through relational intelligence, we're building and creating better collaborators. We're building co-creators that build new ways of seeing and knowing to the table, instead of replicants that simply follow commands. So this is the third way, the hybrid where human intelligence and the unique agency of machines collaborate. This is the bridge between the contradictions, and I'm excited for the beautiful, unknown wonders that will emerge from it. Thank you.
Just wow, that's amazing. We'll get some questions. You can't leave. You actually, I was looking at the slides from behind. I was seeing magic. You brought the future closer
thank you.
to us. Thank you so much, Ms. Sugwen. I will open the floor for questions. If we have any questions, just raise your hand. Yes, go ahead. It's coming to you.
Thank you very much for the absolutely brilliant presentation.
Oh, thank you.
As a big fan of science fiction myself, I'm constantly under the fear of the future, and I am intimidated by the thought that machines are going to take over. I would like to hear from you on your thoughts in this regard. Are we under the threat of being controlled by the sort of intelligence that we are developing?
I think that's a great question. I also am a big fan of science fiction, and I think about that all the time. I think there's something about science, invention, and communication that helps mitigate that fear of that fiction that we know. I think this anxiety really stems from, I mean, it might sound cliche to say, but I think it comes from ourselves and these stories that we're sort of used to telling about human nature, right? Is human nature about control, and are we translating that into the machine systems that we use? I think I understand where that anxiety does come from, but I think part of the role of art and part of the role of this interdisciplinary exploration is to find new hybrids and new ways of connecting with machines that don't threaten our survival and autonomy. I really like this idea that machines can, if we allow and design them this way, free humans up to do more meaningfully human things. And there's a lot to sort of say about that. But Kai-Fu Lee writes a lot on, he's a Chinese writer on sort of the role of machines in human society. And I think these are things that we can choose to adopt or reject and create our own paths for that kind of work.
Thank you so much. I think that question brings us some calmness in that topic. Any more questions from the audience?
I have a question here.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation and for pioneering human and machine relationship in art. But in your view, what is it that machines are adding value to humans in art?
Again, it's a topic I think about a lot. I think there are things that synthetic sensors that make up these machine systems or machine intelligences that they're otherwise called. I think they can do rote and automated tasks and view on a spectrum that humans can't. And they can repeat and automate and extend certain behaviors that they'll always do well, better than a human in some ways. But I think this interesting dialogue between art and machine collaboration really celebrates the things that humans can do better than machines, which is make complex sort of forms of communication and sort of see the forest for the trees, to use a metaphor in that way. So I think machines are able to do automated tasks with more efficiency, but what I find interesting about the development in the field now is that because it's can mirror some human behaviors, it really challenges us to think about what humans can do particularly well. And I think that's in the realm of art, in the realm of care, and in the realm of imagination and invention. So,
Thank you.
thank you for the question.
I can't help myself to ask a question. I have a question. How can we teach machines or robots creativity? That's my question. I know it's quite challenging for me. Like, is it something that we can do to make them understand the process of creativity even better?
I really love thinking about this in terms of embodiment. Obviously, I would, as someone who works with these physically embodied machine processes. I think it's about inventing a kind of machine body in order to use the restraints of embodiment to communicate creativity. So in that case, the set parameters are really parallel with humans, so you can teach human creativity in that way to machines. So restricting some of the parameters by which machines operate, and then sort of letting them figuring out their own problems. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the talk today. That was amazing talk. Thank you, researcher Ms. Sugwen, for your enriching talk.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.